Hello guys, Wahoo here, back with another video. This time around we are doing an updated tier list because the Chloromancer is now live. Not the Chloromancer itself, but the update for it is now live and it's shaking up the tier list a little bit, very little bit, but I want to give you guys always the newest information, and if something changes always mid my videos, I will always make an update that goes for anything there is on the channel. So if you see a video that's kind of old, well, it's because there hasn't been any updates to it, so there's no reason to change it. It still works as of whatever time you watch my videos. So just want to make that clear. When I do the tier list, I will of course put them, rank them and stuff like that, but I also explain some of my personal opinions about the class and my personal preferences, but it won't, affect what the tier list is, but I will explain as we go along which ones are gonna go where and such, of course. So no more further ado, let's just jump into the tier list itself. Alright guys, as you can see, this is the tier list. I made it a little bit different than I usually do. Before I just had a picture where you guys could see all of it, but I kind of want to go over each one and a little bit in a different way. So let's just jump into the very first class, and it's going to be the Boomer. The Boomer is the very first class we are going to talk about, and it's going to still be in the B tier, unfortunately. It could be in the C tier if you're talking about, boss killers and stuff like that, then it's here more like, but what it kind of excels at, if that makes sense, it's more in the whole, what's it called, the, like farming and stuff like that. It can do that pretty well, as, the bombs and stuff like that do quite significant damage for farming. It's like all classes can farm, but this does it okay, so that's why it's in the B tier. So don't, and I just don't like. It doesn't matter if I put it like here or here, still in the same B tier. But I might put some classes in between because they might be excelling, and that's something we'll talk about when we get to that. So let's move into another class, and then we're gonna take the Pirate Captain. The Pirate Captain is still in the A tier. It could be more closer to the B tier because I do have a little bit of ranking up, so it's not super fast as farming goes because you do have to ramp up a little bit, and all those turrets kind of goes whatever direction they want to. So yeah, the Pirate Captain could be in between right here, but I'm gonna put it in the B tier because it is a very good boss killer still. Or decent at least, not S tier, but it's decent for sure. So let's move on to the Nia Ninja. Nia Ninja is still in the A tier as one of the few melee classes because of, not because of boss killing skills, but mostly because of, the speed that it has when it does that. Personally, I prefer it like maybe in between here because I'm not a big fan of the Nia Ninja. Not that it, like I said, it's bad or anything like that, but it's just, I don't see it that being so nice because of how Trove works. But yeah, it is a very good farmer. It's super fast, as it has been all the time yet. So let's move on to another class. We are moving on to the Tomb Raiser, and of course this was the one that got updated before we had the Chloromancer update. So this was the Tomb Raiser, and it is still in the A tier. Nothing really changed around that. Still a very good farmer, not a good boss killer. It's basically very equal in like how good it is at boss killing and as farming, I feel, because it does also take a little bit of time, and if you don't have the souls and stuff, it can be kind of in the way. But yeah, it definitely is around here. Still a very solid class. A tier is pretty good. So still quite solid. So let's move on to another A tier boss killer. I was about to say another A tier class, which is the Dino Tamer. Dino Tamer is in the A tier. It's not a S tier, for example, boss killer, but it's definitely for farming. That's what really puts it in the A tier because of the speed it can do and how fast you can be with your ultimate up. And yeah, it's I tried it, actually played it for some time to actually see why I wasn't a fan of the Dino Tamer, and I found out why, and it was kind of like with the mount and everything. You can actually hit your ultimate ability again. I didn't know that, so you can actually go out of ultimate form because you cannot fly or you cannot use mounts while you are in your ultimate form, of course. But I did, before I just waited out the time to do so, and I felt that it was kind of clunky, but I found out, it might be common knowledge to a lot of people, but it apparently wasn't to me. But you can actually hit that number 2 ability again at the ultimate ability and hop out of ultimate ability, so you can actually use your wings or you use your mount, and it doesn't reset the cooldown or anything like that. And so if you go pretty fast, you won't have the ultimate up, but that's all about playstyle and stuff. But it's definitely an A tier class for both farming and decent again for bosses as well. All right, so let's move on to the very next class, and it is going to be an S tier 1. Let's take an S tier 1, and that's the Gunslinger. The Gunslinger is very much still up there as an S tier. Nothing has really changed with it, so it's still very much the same as it was before. It's still useful. A lot of people were like, oh no, how is the Chloromancer going to stack up with this? Because people have, if you've seen videos online, people have soloed your 10 bosses, but that was on the PTS server when, this guy was 1,000 damage instead of just 500 on the passive. So when the Chloromancer, auto attacks, it puts in a little flower that's 75% chance when you hit an enemy. There's a little flower that spawns next to the enemy, and that also grows up, and then when it explodes, it was 1,000 damage on the PTS server. Now it's only 500. So I haven't seen anybody solo a U10 boss on live yet. I've only seen the PTS server, and I feel like people also kind of lack saying it's on the PTS server, where just like, oh yeah, I solo it, yeah, but you did it with like twice the damage, right? So yeah, just keep that in mind if you see some. Make sure you know if it's on PTS server. Well, people can't record that anymore because it's not up yet. It's not up anymore, but the live one is what you want to look for. So, but we're talking about the Gunslinger. Sorry, I had a difference, but I just kind of ranted on that because the Gunslinger is up here. So Gunslinger is definitely up here. Nothing changed. Really, still a very solid class. No need to do anything for that one. So let's jump into another B tier. Unfortunately, that is still the Candy Barb because of its, not because of its survivability. Maybe it's one of those that like kind of pushes towards an A tier class because of its survivability, and the ultimate actually does decent damage and such. So to kind of rate this one versus this one is that this is more stale. They are very much the same class in many ways, but this has kind of the Lunar Lancer kind of has some stale, I feel like stale abilities, where it's kind of the Candy Barb has a little bit more interesting ones, and definitely the Candy Barb also needs somewhat of a rework, but I don't know really what it should be, because the abilities that it has is fairly interesting compared to the Lunar Lancer. It's much easier for me to find some interesting, or not interesting, but at least some different abilities for this guy here, or at least have some ideas for that. So let's move into actually the Revenant, because he is still right here up in the, and I'm missing some space, but I hope that's okay. The Revenant is in the A tier still, the best melee physical damage character you still can have if you're going that route. Of course, the whole tier list is dominated by magic users. That's just how it is. Ranged is superior by killing bosses and keeping away from all the harm, so that's why they are up there. So here we got, of course, like I said, the Revenant, not a super strong tank or a boss killer, but for what it is, it's still up here. I can't really put it in here. That would be unfair to it, and I don't think it should be in between here. You could have some arguments why and why not it should be there, but it's definitely in the A tier. So there we got the Revenant. Not really much more to say to that. What kind of rework it needs, I don't know, but that I'll maybe cover in the other video. But let's talk about the one of the favorites, the Shadow Hunter, and unfortunately it is still round and round in the B tier. I have some ideas. I actually pretty excited about these ideas that I have. So I'm, could see potentially for the Shadow Hunter to be awesome. It just needs basically clear speed. It's probably never going to be an S tier for the boss killers and stuff like that, because that's what people mostly look for when they look for a tier list or they look for classes, is the boss killing potential basically. So it will never go into the S tier unless they just buff the really a lot of the abilities and basically do Chloromancer 2.0, where they just buff it to 1000% or something like that. But it's still a strong class. It's still a very nice class. You can get some nice speeds on it. So it pushes, of course, into the A tier, but we're gonna put it in the B tier because it's just lacking AoE, and for many skull dungeons and stuff like that, there is a lot of AoE so that shines just a little bit more. You can do it with the explosive gem and stuff like that, but you do have to kill something before that, and if they're not in range and stuff, there is just AoE classes just has a lot more. That's also why the the Revenant is in here, because it does have an AoE. The number one, the spears do nice AoE, and you can clump everything up a little bit more nicely than and also because you're more tanky, but the Shadow Hunter is just not that. So unfortunately it is in the B tier. Again, arguments for going into the middle of the A tier if you want to do so. So let's go on to the Vanguardian, and the Vanguardian is actually in the B tier just because of not really speed, but it's a solid between, I would say. It's a solid between, but I'm gonna put it in the B tier just because there's not much room in the A tier. No, that's not it, but you could argue definitely it's definitely between these two, maybe just above it or just below it. It's weird class because it does okay, but it doesn't need a rework. That's not what it is, but it's just very hard to define this one because it's very much of a personal. I think it's very much of a personal preference. So people that like the Vanguardian would definitely put it in the A tier. People that are just like me, that is just I'm okay with the Vanguardian. It's not my favorite class. I would put it in a B tier. So I'm just gonna put it in a B tier because I got more room here. But you could definitely again argue it could be here or there. It doesn't really need a rework. It's also the newest class, of course. Hopefully we'll get a new class at some point, and then I have to do a whole new tier list. So that's gonna be great. But yeah, the Vanguardian is around here. So yeah, there's not really much more to say about that one. The Fae Trickster can be argued that it's, again, with the Vanguardian, it's pretty solid as a single target shooter as with the Ice Age. And I'm actually gonna be a little nice here, and I'm actually gonna put it in the A tier because I do like it more than I like the Vanguardian, just because of the single target. It's definitely pushing down to the B tier, that's for sure, because of the abilities. The bombs do great damage for farming. It does do great damage for farming, and when you hit those with the bombs, it just annihilates everything. But for a boss killer, it's just not strong enough. If you want a single target nuker, you are more on this Ice Age, which I'll take right after this one here. But yeah, we got the Fae Trickster. I'll be nice this time around. I did put it in the last video. I put it in the B tier. I'm gonna put it in the A tier this time just because it's pretty nice, but or should we just be very neutral and put it in the between? We'll put it in the between just because then we'll make everybody happy, and that's what we all are. So let's move on to the Ice Age, which is a lot more prominent because, of course, it's still in the S tier, still a superior boss killer. Arguably, which one is better? I would say, compare the not the Shadow Hunter, the Gunslinger to the Ice Age, and the Ice Age is better because it's not as reliant on your flash charges as it is on the, Gunslinger. Of course, you use flash charges on this one as well. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying that this has to, cycle those flash, so keeping up the ultimate and stuff like that. And this is just more just shoot, right? So that's just basically, that's why it makes it very much superior. And maybe it's even the strongest of them all, but that's also about gameplay because We're gonna talk about the Chloromancer as the last one because that's maybe the most interesting one. But yeah, we're gonna take that one. So let's take the oldest of the classes, the Knight, and unfortunately it is all the way down. Nah, not all the way down, but it's all the way here. It's really not strong. The gameplay itself is mediocre. You know, I actually have a hard time defining this one. In also in the way where if you talk about class identity and stuff like that, then yeah, you want to change it to be something awesome in the rework. But yeah, it definitely needs it. It's totally boring, to be honest. It's totally boring to play. Some people, of course, prefer it, but I'm gonna be a little hard here and actually put it right here. I'm actually gonna be a little hard on the Knight. I do think it's a good class, but it definitely needs like not in compared to damage and stuff. Damage is not, but we're also talking about, you know, playability and just interesting gameplay and such. All right. So let's not talk about the Knight anymore. You know, all the melee classes, you can basically see where they're kind of rocking around in. So yeah, if you're gonna go crazy, always take a magic user. So here we got the Dracolyte, as this is my favorite class, so might be a little bit biased, but it's definitely in the A tier. Of course, it's missing the range of, you know, what it is, so you can't just walk up to like your 10 Leviathan bosses and just tank them straight up. Because it's just, there's too much damage in there, but it's definitely good for farming and it's just solid tanking and stuff like that. It's just all around, I feel like it's the best, but I won't, you know, go into here because it's just can't compete with those because of ranged and also single target and stuff like that. But it is very much here. So I'm gonna go like crazy and say, oh, it's definitely up here because yeah, I do have a personal preference to the class, so I'll just put it in the A tier for sure. In situations could be like between there, but yeah, definitely. So now we got the last one, the Chloromancer, the one that was an update, and it is definitely an S tier class. S tier class now for a boss killing. I could, in a personal preference, I would go in between here because farming right now for it is still not great. It still has some ramping up to do, so it's not crazy amazing for farming. The same thing is with these. This is basically just because of the damage output that these guys are up here, and also because of the boss potential killing. And the same is with the Chloromancer, is the boss killing is amazing. So short true damage numbers, I don't have those right on me here, but it's definitely up here. So definitely a crazy upgrade for actually being in down, like even in the maybe the C tier and stuff like that. Now it's up in definitely in the S tier, which is nice to see. Definitely overpowered on the PTS server, as I talked about, but it is great. The way where it landed is very nice and solid. So Chloromancer is definitely up here. As I said about the farming, it just has to ramp up a little bit, and there's just classes that does it better. There's mostly just the classes that does farming. Basically, the classes that does farming the best is also the worst at boss killing, and then other way around. That's at least how I feel. But we have 16 classes to choose between as right now. So yeah, there's a solid, you know, just have a, it's not only one class you would put everything into, but yeah, the Chloromancer is definitely up here, and it's cool, and I like what they did with it, and I just, there's a few things that I will mention in the other video about it, but yeah, it's definitely up there, and totally a good update for it as well. Alright, so you might be wondering if you have seen this tier list before, that it very much looks the same, nothing really changed other than I took out the Lunar Lancer and we also are at this screen here. So I'm not gonna do a big intro, but what the tier list was before, I tried to create it again, so it moved a little bit around, but we do have 2 characters that we haven't added because since of that. So the rest of the characters are still in the same place they've been since that. So all I really want to do is just add now the Lunar Lancer and the Bard. So first we're gonna start with the Bard, so because that was the update before that. So let's start with the Bard. So the Bard is gonna be definitely in the A tier. It can also it's kind of the same as the Dino Tamer. That's not a lot of room for you, is there, sir? But yeah, this is where the not the Lunar Lancer, that's there, the Bard is going to be. There's a lot of classes in the A tier now. They have done a lot of this. Still, you know, the knight down here. I'll also make a guide whenever they rework this one to into something else. But yes, the Bard is around here. It has a lot of speed. It can be very super fast, but it just don't have the damage numbers of these guys up here still. So it's around here just because of the fast speed it can. It's unlike par with the Dino Tamer, the Neo Ninja. Maybe the Neo Ninja is a little bit more up towards this in farming potential, but you know, definitely the Bard is around here. Not that it matters if it's here or here, but it can be buddies. It can be best buddies with the Dino Tamer. If I move this guy over here, they can be like down there hand in hand, but they're around the same. So just the sheer damage numbers is what the problem is for the Bard, but that doesn't mean it's not a very good support class. It does amazing with speeds and stuff like that. So definitely an A tier class for sure. And then let's move on to the Lunar Lancer. All right, so lastly, the Lunar Lancer, that is the last update we got. So it was before, it was in the B tier, it was down here. You know, the Bard didn't have a tier before, but the Lunar Lancer was down here in the B tier. So where has it ended up? It has ended up in the A tier. It does have amazing damage, and there's almost no room anymore. Everything is in A tier. Does this make lists that just say, hey, everything is in A tier? But the damage numbers has gone up, but it's just not complicated. It's not that it's super complicated or anything like that, but it is just a little bit, wouldn't say unreliable again, but it is not as potent in a way as these classes. They're very straightforward and they just have the damage number to support them. And this also kind of has this the damage number ish, but it's just, you know, we have to, you know, you're not in your ultimate form all the time. And sure, these are not, the ultimate here is not up all the time, but like a Chloromancer Cubesley or, you know, the Chromatic Emblem does not help the, you know, the Lunar Lancer, because you get the energy or the, what do you call, mana energy when you hit things, right? And it doesn't matter if you have a long cooldown or short cooldown, whatever. It's just when you're hitting. And also there's Leviathans that do hit pretty hard. So if you are in melee range, you know, so even though you might have the damage numbers, melee is always going to be, they can probably never be in an A tier, an S tier. They can probably never be an S tier. So if you are a melee main of some of them, you're probably never gonna see them up in the S tier just because ranged is just superior in Trove. That's just how it all works. Maybe they'll change it in some time in the future, but we don't know. But the Lunar Lancer now goes from a very low, actually almost C tier kind of class into a solid A tier class. Very farmable, very high damage numbers. Not a super, it can be fast, but not on the same power as the ones we talked about, the Dino Tamer and the Bard, and also of course the Neo Ninja. But this is where the Lunar Lancer ends up. So I hope you guys enjoyed the extra addition that I added to here, to the there, and I hope it wasn't making it too unsensitive or have no sense that I just added them, but it was just would take ages to make a completely new list when the list hasn't changed, except for those two that they both went into the A tier. So I hope you guys still enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe and tell me how your tier list looks in the comments. So thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!